There are very few classic BattleTech mechs that have it as rough as the Assassin. While some battle mechs suffer from an ill-fitting name or have a poor reputation due to technical issues, or even struggle to make an impact due to an unfortunate weapons loadout, the ASN-21 Assassin was blessed with all of these issues and few more. While some Why Do We Love videos are easy to make because battle mechs each have something going for them, this one may be more melancholy. So while there may be some tough things to say, keep in mind that I actually do like the Assassin in spite of all of its flaws, which are many. It's an underdog, and as a shameless American, sometimes being an underdog is enough. Now let's get into the fray and see what the Assassin brings to the fight. In the hazy, smoke-filled distance, beyond the slow-moving Vindicator, Nico witnessed the Federated Commonwealth Assassin's vibrant pulse laser shear off the right leg of Mechwarrior Xenia's Jenner 2C at the knee. The falling, saucer-shaped torso plowed a furrow into the dirt, and the entire right-hand side of the battlemech erupted into a fireball when the falling impact crushed and detonated one of the short-range missile magazines. The fire-blackened mech shuddered in frustration, but Xenia would not be getting it upright anytime soon, not with half of the Jenner reduced to wreckage. Horn and Fang, Slacktide Battlecore Anthology by Philip A. Lee. Forged in the fires of Mount Maltex. Wait, no. Sorry, wrong intro. The origins of the 40-ton Assassin are found in the early years of battlemech production, where defense contracts were plentiful and often signed after 5 or 6 too many glasses of champagne. The Maltex Corporation's sales team must have been pretty amazing at their jobs because they managed to secure a contract for a brand new 40-ton battlemech that was supposed to be able to chase down and pummel mechs like the Wasp and Stinger into scrap. Who wouldn't like the sound of that? Considering how many hundreds and thousands of those little buggers were running around causing chaos on the battlefield. Of course, the Ameris is in the details, as they say, and the ASN-21 blueprints contained some issues that wouldn't manifest until production was well underway. Maltex Corporation's production lines on Eadeh, roughly 50 light-years from Terra, had already produced 2 successful and popular battlemech designs. The Thug 11E was first produced in 2572 and was a big hit with mech warriors. The Wyvern, produced first in 2660, was popular among commanders who wanted a powerful 45-ton workhorse. So with momentum at their back and a good existing production line near Terra, there was little to suggest that Maltex's next battlemech wouldn't be another home run. Constructed from an in-house Maltrax 40 standard frame around a 280 Vox Fusion engine, the 40-ton ASN-21 Assassin was intended to be a very swift mover. The 711-7 movement profile, made possible with the addition of 7 AFTA 100 jump jets, pushed the opportunity cost table away from armor and weaponry. You can't escape the opportunity cost, ladies and gentlemen. With just 4.5 tons of Locke's Lift Series 1 standard armor, the Assassin had just 72 points of protection. While this doesn't set it apart from many of its peers at that weight point, it's still half of the possible max armor for its mass. The other major structural feature worth noting here is the cockpit design. As many an unfortunate mech warrior would discover, the Assassin's cockpit was quite poorly designed, leaving only minimal room for movement and warrior placement in the command seat. Additionally, the cockpit's cooling system must have been designed by a committee because it not only caused immediate problems in the first production runs, but it would end up needing to be completely redesigned multiple times. Those Assassin early adopters ended up crammed into a cockpit that felt like it was in a light mech and then cooked like Vegas in July if they weren't very conservative with their heat management. Finally, after all the structural bits were sorted out, the remaining 6 tons of mass for the ASN-21 could be devoted to weaponry. In a course that is familiar for battlemechs from the time period, the design philosophy was to include a little bit of everything. The mech's primary weapon could be considered the Martel medium laser in the right arm. The standard medium laser was the workhorse weapon for hundreds of years, and the assassin would benefit from its inclusion. To give the mech a long reach, a Holly 5 long-range missile launcher was installed into the right torso along with 1 ton of ammunition. Finally, presumably to help settle close-range disagreements, a Holly 2 short-range missile launcher was installed into the left torso, fed by its own dedicated ton of ammunition. Originally advertised by the Maltech sales team as a swift hunter of lights, the ASN-21 Assassin ended up being a swift but moderate annoyance. While the medium laser was solid, the combination of SRM and LRM launchers meant that most of the time the Assassin wouldn't be able to bring all of its weapons to bear on a single target at the same time. This is not an inconsequential issue, as being able to take a snapshot when the moment is right is crucial for hunting light mechs that might only offer up an opportunity once in a blue moon. The weapons loadout was further troubled by reports that the short-range missile launcher was jamming in the middle of battle. Unlike other mechs that could be jostled or nudged back into behaving themselves, the SRM-2 required a full disassembly by a tech in order to unjam the ammunition feed mechanism. Already short on punch, losing that SRM-2 in the heat of battle was unacceptable, yet persisted on the early production runs of the battlemech. When looked at in its totality, the Assassin was a 40-ton mech that lacked the firepower to do its advertised job, and though it had easy-to-maintain elements, its cramped cockpit, shoddy life support system, and ammunition jamming issues led to slow adoption and likely many an angry message from customers who wanted another Thug or Wyvern, but instead got a Temu Clint. Laser fire struck the archer from behind, but Alex ignored the attack, loosing another barrage into the Assassin already in his sights. The Assassin went into a crouch, and Alex's readouts showed a sudden buildup of power. The Assassin pilot was readying for a jump. Lumbering forward, Alex triggered a final volley of lasers at point-blank range, slashing through the Assassin's already mangled armor. Closing in to touching distance, his archer's steel fist rising high overhead. He brought the arm down in a hammer blow that connected with the Assassin's back and armored left shoulder with an ear-tearing shriek of tortured metal. The Assassin tried to respond with the left-armed swing of its own, clumsy and badly aimed. Alex blocked it and then smashed his right fist into the other mech's torso. Stricken, the Assassin dropped to hands and knees as though in submission before the blind and battle-maddened fury of the rampaging archer. Tactics of Duty by William H. Keith, Jr. The battlefield debut for the Assassin was interesting not just due to the battlemech's performance, but also due to an error that was introduced into the official record-keeping, which persisted through the Succession Wars. It led some to believe that the initial appearance for the ASN-21 Assassin was in 2980, a full 304 years after the battlemech's first production date of 2676. Thankfully, the clerical error has now been corrected as of updated printing of the sacred 3025 technical readout. Comstar, of course, did not make any public comment concerning any clerical error. The fight on Rochelle, which is a planet one jump away from Solaris in the Free Worlds League, was a nasty brawl between forces loyal to House Merrick and House Steiner invaders. Though details are fuzzy, apparently the assassins deployed by the Free Worlds League fared well against their attackers to the extent that it convinced House Merrick to procure additional mechs for garrison deployment. Records show that there were even multiple lances of only assassins used as elite reconnaissance troopers for select mission profiles. The 27th century was a wild time for tall tales of battlemech achievements. Let's just accept them at face value until proven otherwise. A fight much later in the timeline on Severin showed an arguably more realistic performance for the noble assassin when matched up against units from House Steiner. The assassins were deployed by a mercenary unit that called themselves the Ephigean Light Assault Group, or ALAG. The Mercs used a few of their assassins to raid logistics lines and cause chaos for the Lyrans over the course of several weeks. Not well equipped for working far from resupply, the assassins eventually ran low and then completely out of ammunition. That left each mech with just their Martel medium laser to do their work. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be enough when chased down by elements of the 15th Lyran Guard, who were able to corner and destroy all but 2 of the fleeing mercenary assassins. When looking at after-action reports from battles on Wheel, Cephel, and Silene, House Davion number crunchers were disappointed by the assassin's performance, citing issues with ammunition dependency and vulnerability to rearguard units, A design team was put to work in 3021 to develop a Davion custom variant. It will be just one of several attempts to turn the assassin into something worth the cost of upkeep and repairs. Cantor Canyon, Toland, 13 November 3028, 1700 hours. Looks like we've got an enforcer, assassin, trebuchet, and a Valkyrie on the perimeter of the compound, Ryan. We could tell there are a few more mechs inside the wall, but they're not moving. Red Jack Ryan keyed his comlink. Do they belong to the 30th Lyran? Nope, they're not Lyran. I can't tell the designation, but they must be mercs like Grimm's intel indicated. Another truth. So far, everything Grimm had given Ryan was true. Unholy Union, Counterattack Battlecore Anthology Volume 5 by Chris Husey. The House Davion refit that was first spotted in 3024 was the first official refit on the timeline since introduction. The multi-century wait was due to the small number of assassins still in service through the Succession Wars, as well as the fact that the original Maltex Corporation assembly line was obliterated in 2835, and though they had licensed assassin production to Hellespont Mechworks based on Cyan, the number produced was never impressive. There simply wasn't enough of the mech around, nor demand for more, to justify a fresh look. The ASN 101 House Davion refit sought to bolster the assassin's firepower and finally empower the mech to serve in its goal of being a hunter of light battlemechs. Of course, judging how successful they were on that is up to you. In order to bulk up the offensive firepower for the 101, sacrifices had to be made. Ultimately, the decision was made to pull 2 jump jets and a half-ton of armor to make room for 3 standard small lasers. 2 of them were set into the legs, and the 3rd was crammed into the already crowded mech's head. I know we like our emotional support small lasers, but this might be testing that claim. While clearly more powerful in a close-range fight, the armor coverage for the ASN 101 is firmly in the light mech territory. The loss of 2 jump jets is more forgivable. Clearly, the Davions thought the change was worth the effort, as a good number of the AFFS assassins were converted over. Rachel stared at the thunderbolts back in shock. Not until she saw more get hit by fire from the lead Rough Riders did she snap out of it. "Cornet," one of the Taurians said. "What do we do?" Another truck exploded, more soldiers dead. She couldn't fight an entire Rough Riders company and seize a dropship at the same time. She had no choice. "We run," she said. "Head for the mountains on the other side of the valley. If we can lose them, we can regroup and decide what to do. Move." The Taurians broke across the clearing, and several Rough Riders shifted direction to open fire at them. One of the Lancers, an assassin, fell as missiles blasted one of its legs apart. A few steps later, another Lancer, a Garm, staggered as most of its torso exploded. Blood Rage by Craig A. Reed, Jr. By the time we get to the Helm Memory Core refit, new assassins were being produced from the Hellespont Mechworks production lines on Cyan within the Capellan Confederation. For reasons only known to the Celestial Wisdom, the Capellans really took to the assassin, and in the first half of the 31st century, the mech went from near extinction to a frequent sight within the Capellan Confederation armed forces. The licensing agreement with Maltex was exploited to its fullest by Hellespont, which basically just took over production entirely and became the only serious source for new assassins moving forward. The ASN 23s that started to show up in the military units of the Magistracy of Canopus and Taurian Concordat were proof that it wasn't just for the benefit of the Capellan defense markets. The production runs from the Cyan factory in 3050 reflected a rush to adopt these newfound technologies, often with very little thought given to the consequences for a battlemech. I know we joke in this channel about just slapping ER large lasers onto battlemechs at every opportunity, but there is another Helm Core menace that plagues this era's refits and reconfigurations. It's the scourge of the Artemis IV fire control system, but we'll get to that in a minute. The ASN 23 Assassin produced on Cyan was constructed from a Hellespont Type A 40 series chassis wrapped around a traditional Vox 280 fusion engine. The AFTA 100 jump jets from the original remained in place, maintaining that 7.11.7 movement profile. The 4.5 tons of Hellespont Industries Series 9 standard plate armor maintains the original armor profile and layout. The only Helm Core tech that was added to the mech was the weaponry. The previous loadout was almost completely scrapped, leaving only the Holly long-range Missile 5 rack in place, but supplementing its accuracy with the Artemis 4 fire control system. The standard medium laser in the right arm was replaced by a Magna 400P medium pulse laser, which sacrificed range for accuracy and slightly improved damage output. With its traditional 10 single heat sinks, the Assassin 23 wasn't susceptible to heat issues unless really pushing it with the jump jets and alpha striking. The improved accuracy for the medium pulse laser was a win for the original stated purpose of hunting light mechs. Unfortunately, with so little mass to play with, an Artemis 4 fire control system for an LRM-5 just cannot justify its existence. Wading into the dangerous waters here, let's look at the math. I can almost hear some of you out there thinking, oh, there's no way he isn't going to screw this up, so let's find out. So the average number of missiles from any successful LRM strike is 3, or 3.17 if you want to get specific. The Artemis 4 fire control system improves the accuracy of that strike by adding 2 to the cluster hits table roll. For the LRM-5, that means the average number of missiles hitting a target rises to 3.83. So for the expense of a ton of mass, which could be spent on, say, a standard medium laser, which could do 5 damage, you're improving your average damage on your existing weapon by less than 1. Now I know I suck at math, but even I can see the numbers aren't numbering. There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you, fool me, and you can't get fooled again. In all but the most tailored or contrived circumstances, the Artemis 4 system just really isn't worth it for an LRM-5 launcher. Speaking specifically of our dear Assassin, where it's already suffering from a lack of offensive punch, this was a painful step backward. Yesterday he was simming in a Shadowhawk, squared off against an Assassin. Should have been an easy kill for the boy. He's got talent, a real feel for operating the mech, for becoming almost one with it. But then, here, look. Leaning over the desk, Artman pointed to the engagement on the screen, an interweaving of colored lines on the graph that carried the story for those trained to read it. There, 12 seconds into the encounter, the Assassin started moving to his left, turning away from him as it did so. Practically an invitation. Hey, come get me! Your son's proper response would have been to move in, pivot hard left, and drop onto the old Sassy's tail. But he turned right instead. Artman's brown finger traced along the rise and fall of colored lines, up to a point where all the lines came together, then dropped sharply to the floor of the graph. The Sassy, with its greater speed, seized the initiative and got onto the Hawk's tail instead. Tactics of Duty by William H. Keith, Jr. Not to be outdone in the attempts to help the Assassin self-actualize, the Lyrans came up with a refit in 3062 that bought some mass through the installation of a new light fusion engine wrapped in an endosteel frame. Due to the mech's less than stellar reputation, these were a pretty unexpected gift to the platform. This work was carried out by a team at Defiance Industries which had purchased a license from Maltex. The end result was a stronger battle mech that seemingly abandoned any attempt to be a short-range hunter of light mechs and instead could operate as a mid-range skirmisher. Beyond the endosteel, light engine, and 10 double heat sinks, the most needed structural change was the increase of 2 additional tons of armor plating added to the battle mech. Pushing the total number of armor points to 104, this Assassin was considerably harder to bring down in comparison to its earlier versions. Whereas none of these changes are that controversial, the weapons loadout for the ASN-30 did invite debate. The honor of being a primary weapon had to be shared between an ER medium laser set into the right arm and an LB-5X autocannon installed into the right torso. The LB-5X was fed by just a single ton of ammunition in the right torso. Now I would love to sit down with the Defiance team and have a conversation about how they settled on the LB-5X because I'm sure it would be fascinating. Somehow, the total mass dedicated to weaponry for the Assassin was increased to 10 tons, but yet the overall possible damage ended up dropping. The most generous explanation I can conjure on the fly is that they wanted to create a machine that could crit hunt already damaged targets with those LB-5X cluster shots. But even then, this is a major investment in battlemech hardware in order to plink away at a target with an LB-5X. The most realistic, or possibly cynical, explanation is that somebody owned an LB-5X factory and was bribing the Defiance ASN-30 team, and no one really cared enough to do anything about the resulting mess. The one bright spot for the whole venture was the custom refit known as the ASN-30 Alice, which was built upon the Lyran chassis. The source for this little monster was Alice Humpterderby, who escaped Tamar following the Clan Wolf assault on the planet in 3051. As Natasha Kerensky's Alpha Galaxy burned toward the planet, the Tamarians were on their own, abandoned by the Federated Commonwealth. Thanks to her politically connected father, Alice was able to escape the planet before its defenses collapsed, along with the remnants of the 26th Lyran Guards. Only after leaving Tamar did Humpterderby receive training as a mech warrior and was brought into the 26th's fold. Piloting a standard ASN-30 assassin, she served with distinction for several decades before eventually being dispossessed on Dalkeith in 3066 during the Fedcom Civil War. Left with a busted-up and inoperable mech in dire need of significant repairs, Alice was assigned to a logistics position where she was able to inventory salvage taken from the 4th Davion Guards. Alice ended up taking the initiative and selflessly redirected valuable technology to rebuild her battle mech to the form we see here. The ASN-30 Alice looks a lot like the original 30 model except for its 7.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor, which very nearly maxes out the mech. The movement profile remained at 7.11.7 and it carried 10 double heatsinks. For the first time, an assassin truly became dangerous when Humpterderby installed 4 ER medium lasers into the mech. 2 were set into the right arm and 1 into each side torso. To aid in the mech's ability to zap bug mechs, a targeting computer was also installed into the center torso, improving the accuracy of each of those lasers by 1. To bolster the mech's ability to avoid another rapid, unplanned disassembly event, a Guardian ECM suite was added to the mech's right torso. To help it hunt, the mech was given a Beagle active probe set into the left torso, and finally a C3 slave unit was installed into the open head critical location. This Operation Sneaky Sneak version of the assassin is surprisingly pretty useful. It might run a little warm if firing all 4 lasers on the run, but it's manageable for multiple turns without seeing negative effects. All of the electronics warfare gear allows the ASN-30 Alice to work as a hunter and scout. Overall, it's pretty solid. Hey Minifrog, what's the rating on this thing? Alright, the Assassin Alice refit earns 3 maple bars and this broken Star Wars figure out of 12. Mita roared her triumph and searched the battlefield for an unengaged opponent. There, a lone assassin stood its ground over the fallen shape of a Jaguar Viper. Meta locked her right PPC onto the enemy machine, waited a moment longer until the heatsinks brought the temperature under control, and fired. The blast took the enemy in the leg, snapping the left shin like a rotten stick. The assassin dropped like a poleaxed steer. The pilot must have been stunned by the fall, for the enemy machine did not try to rise again. Shadows of War, Twilight of the Clans, Volume 6, by Thomas S. Gressman. Hopping down the timeline to 3068, the next official assassin was designated by Hellespont Mechworks as the ASN-99. It was constructed from a standard frame wrapped around an extra light fusion engine for mass savings. The 10 double heatsinks and 7.11.7 movement profile are no surprise at this point, but the 8 tons of stealth armor sure did raise a few eyebrows. How did it take hundreds of years to make a mech called the Assassin stealthy? Seems wrong. Anyway. The stealth armor, however, can only help you arrive at your destination. What you do when you get there, besides taking your shoes off and scrunching your toes in the carpet, is up to you and the sword that the Assassin-99 carries in its left arm. The rest of the loadout doesn't matter, so let's just move on. What's that? Oh, alright. So the longest range weapon is a light particle projection cannon set into the right arm, which offers its modest 5 damage out to 18 hexes. At swordplay range, 2 SRM splits between the side torsos can pack their punch, feeding from a single ton of ammunition in the left torso. To further facilitate the use of stealth armor, a Guardian ECM was set into the left torso. Finally, target acquisition gear was installed into the open head critical location to allow the mech to act as a forward artillery spotter. While definitely a flexible machine, the ASN-99's ability to dish out damage is pretty limited. As cool as the sword is, it's only going to be doing 5 damage to a target in a successful swing, and the minimum distance on that light PPC prevents alpha striking at close range. The Assassin-99 is a very niche design with a narrow purpose. I couldn't shoe in an Agent 99 joke in here, but then I realized that the only people who would catch it are probably already thinking about her. You're one of a kind, Barbara Felden. Taking a big leap down the timeline to 3140, our most recent assassin variant arrives thanks to our friends at Hellespont on Cian. No shock there. The production line is continually run at low numbers, providing fresh mechs for the Capellant armed forces. The mech's continued lackluster performance might have resulted in a cancellation, but factors like sunk cost and a large number of common parts shared with the Raven 2 helps the assassin trudge along. The new ASN 109 variant is an update from the 99 with a standard structure, a 280XL engine, 10 double heatsinks, and 8 tons of stealth armor. The most notable structural change was the installation of a small cockpit, which was really just a capitulation on the part of the designers who couldn't salvage the atrocious original layout and figured the mech could just go ahead and lean into it for the mass and size savings. The light PPC makes its return to the right arm, but this time it's not alone at long and mid-range thanks to the installation of a multi-missile 5 launcher in the right torso, which could feed from 2 tons of ammunition protected by Case 2. An improved one-shot SRM-2 sat in the left torso, and finally an Angel ECM suite was installed into the head critical slot to facilitate the use of the stealth armor. Reports from the Capellan's drive toward Terra to face down Alaric's Wolf Empire suggest that the stealthy assassins were being used to break through front lines and headhunt, though I wonder how effective they could really be with the 109's limited firepower. Let me know what you think about the Assassin 109. I'm a little wary. A flash through her Shadowhawk's canopy screen snagged Lori's attention, making her look up. Sunlight was glinting off the angular canopy of the Firelance's assassin as it moved past her to the right. Beyond, high in an achingly beautiful blue-green sky, white contrails drew themselves through the air, arcing down toward Castle Hill. LRM's incoming boss, Sal Donatelli warned, his assassin breaking into a slow, steady, lumbering trot. Glancing down, Lori noted the long-range missile traces on her display screen, tiny clusters of white dots arrowing toward her position. Operation Excalibur by William H. Keith, Jr. Now, before we mosey on down to the Oasis for a drink, I did want to take a crack at creating my own totally unofficial and non-canon assassin variant. It's easy to talk poorly about something and it's something else entirely to actually try and fix it, so I'm going to see what I can piece together for you. The ASN 110MF is a return to a more basic form, sacrificing the stealth armor and returning to an XL and endosteel structural config. The 7.11.7 movement profile hasn't changed, nor have I messed with the 10 double heatsinks. The small cockpit remains as well, just for fun. Take that, tall people. The 110MF's primary weapon is a snub-nosed particle projection cannon set into the right arm, aided in its already impressive range profile by a targeting computer set into the open head critical locations. With that improved aim, the snub-nosed PPC is firing in short range starting at 9 hexes and closer for 10 damage with a -1 accuracy boost. Light mechs, be concerned. Also joining the fun, starting at 9 hexes and closer, 2 Streak SRM-2 launchers are installed into the left arm, both feeding from a single ton of ammunition also stored in that same limb. We're channeling Kenny Loggins and barreling toward the danger zone. Finally, 3 ER small lasers finish up the loadout, scattering 1 in each side torso and 1 maxing out the center torso open criticals. They also benefit from that targeting computer's accuracy boost. While the overall alpha strike at closer than 9 hexes is a possible 27, the improved accuracy and pinpoint 10 damage has to be factored in when we're discussing a hunter of light and medium mechs. I think that this build goes a long way to helping the assassin live up to its name. If you're interested in giving this variant a try, I've included the PDF record sheet for it in the link in the video notes below. Good luck. So why do we love the assassin? Oh boy, that's a tough one. I think the moral of the story here is that it's really tough to be a 40-ton battle mech, due to the fact that it's an awkward in-between weight that doesn't allow the mech to be a powerful medium, but also not a really fast light. At this rough mass point, it really requires that a battle mech maximize every half-ton for maximum effect. Unfortunately, the original Assassin doesn't do that very well, and it only barely gets better down the timeline. The fluff for the assassin is pretty rough, adding insult to injury, and while it actually looks pretty cool thanks to Duane Luce's original artwork, it's easy to leave it behind in favor of better options. Just finding quotations for this video was a challenge, as most of the time when an assassin is mentioned, it's being ripped apart by a better battle mech. While I don't dislike the assassin like I do a few other designs, I feel kind of bad for it since it has gotten the short end of the stick in several ways. With that said, what do you think about our dear little assassin? Is it a mech you've regularly fielded, or is it just not good enough to make the list? Is there a variant that you think is peak assassin? Before we wrap this up, I'd like to make a little bit of a personal appeal. If you've enjoyed this video and enjoy the content on the channel, please consider, if you are able, becoming a channel member or supporting through Ko-fi. Even just a few bucks a month can add up to make a more compelling argument for continuing this project into the new year and beyond. I know times are tough right now for a lot of people, and I totally understand. People have reached out and said they'd like to help but are facing real-life challenges, and I definitely think you should make sure your books are in order before tossing nonsense YouTubers your hard-earned cash. That being said, thank you to all of you who put your trust in me to keep these videos coming. 5 years ago, I was just a burnout teacher who didn't really know what to do, and now I look forward to getting to work each day writing scripts, taking photos, working with artists, and building a BattleTech resource that I hope will be useful well into the future. Thank you, I appreciate it. We've had quite a few new mech photo submitters this month, and showing off the cool mech paint jobs has become one of my favorite parts of doing what I do. If you'd like to join us, come hang out in Discord where we talk BattleTech, share memes, and even occasionally discuss cool history stuff. The link to the server is in the video notes below. With that, I'll say have a great week, take care, and please go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.